The cold silence of deep space shattered without warning. Probe Alpha 7's quantum communication array began to pulse with an anomalous signal that defied every known pattern of stellar communication. Captain Elena Rodriguez felt the hair on the back of her neck rise as the holographic displays in the command center flickered with impossible data streams. "Run that again," she commanded, her voice steady despite the electricity crackling through the air of the research vessel horizon. Her second-in-command, Dr. Kai Chen, manipulated the holographic controls with practiced precision. The signal repeated, a complex weave of quantum-entangled information that seemed to bend the very rules of data transmission. The Horizon was 3 months into its deep-range exploration mission, far beyond the comfortable patrol zones of human-controlled space. They were supposed to be mapping quantum resonance patterns near the Carina Nebula, a mission so routine that most of the crew had settled into a comfortable rhythm of extended space living. Now, everything had changed. "It's not just a signal," Dr. Annika Volkov, the ship's lead xenorchaeologist, muttered. Her fingers danced across multiple interface panels, each movement revealing another layer of the mysterious transmission. "This is something else entirely." The signal carried a geometric complexity that defied traditional communication models. It wasn't a message in any conventional sense. It was more like a key, a blueprint, a living mathematical structure that seemed to pulse with an almost sentient rhythm. Each time they attempted to decode it, the pattern shifted, revealing new depths of complexity. Suddenly, the ship's external sensors picked up a massive energy signature. What had appeared to be empty space began to shimmer and distort. Like a ghost emerging from the void, an enormous structure materialized, a research station that seemed to have been waiting, dormant, for millennia. "Holy shit," whispered Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, Elena's younger brother and the ship's tactical officer. "Is that real?" The station was unlike anything in human records. Its design defied traditional geometric principles, surfaces that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, hull materials that absorbed and redistributed light in impossible patterns. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a testament to technological capabilities far beyond human understanding. Captain Rodriguez knew they were facing a moment that would redefine humanity's place in the universe. First contact protocols ran through her mind, but nothing in their training could have prepared them for this. "Maintain absolute communication discipline," she ordered. "No broadcast, passive sensors only." Dr. Chen's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, the station, it's scanning us. But it's not like any scan I've ever seen. It's more like it's reading us, studying us." The station's surface began to shift, revealing what appeared to be access points. But these were not traditional airlocks or docking mechanisms. They were quantum interfaces, points of potential connection that seemed to invite and challenge simultaneously. Annika Volkov's hands were trembling slightly as she analyzed the data. "This technology, it's not just advanced. It's so far beyond our current understanding that calling it technology feels inadequate. It's more like a living system of information and potential." Elena Rodriguez made a decision that would echo through human history. "Prepare a minimal contact team. We're going to investigate, but we move with absolute caution." As the first human team prepared to approach the mysterious station, none of them realized they were about to trigger a sequence of events that would fundamentally alter the course of human civilization. The ghost signal was more than a message. It was an invitation, a test, and the first chapter of a story that would reshape the understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. The universe was about to meet humanity, and nothing would ever be the same again. The central chambers of the Zarkon Concordance erupted in a cacophony of alien languages and holographic displays. Representatives from 17 different star-spanning civilizations watched in a mix of horror and fascination as the first intercepted reports about humans scrolled across massive quantum-link screens. High Arbiter Vornak, a towering crystalline being whose body constantly shifted between solid and energy states, slammed a multi-dimensional gavel that sent ripples of quantum energy through the chamber. "Impossible," he intoned, his voice a resonant blend of mathematical precision and emotional undertone. A species this primitive cannot have accessed the quantum communication networks. It defies every established protocol of galactic development. In the human delegation's hastily established communication center, Marcus Chen knew they were being watched, analyzed, and judged. At just 34, he was the youngest chief diplomatic strategist ever assigned to a first contact scenario. His team was a carefully selected group of linguists, mathematicians, cultural experts, and quantum communication specialists. "They're trying to categorize us," Marcus murmured to Dr. Elena Reyes, the team's xenolinguistic expert. Her augmented translation implants were working overtime, parsing the multiple alien communication channels. But they can't find a standard classification for humanity. The Zarkon Concordance's response was swift and overwhelming. Within hours, a battle fleet assembled, a massive armada of ships that defied human comprehension. Each vessel was a living ecosystem of technological might, capable of destroying entire planetary systems with barely a computational effort. Admiral Cathax of the Ceridian Confluence, a serpentine being whose body was more machine than organic, addressed the Concordance. "These humans represent an unprecedented anomaly. Their unexpected quantum communication breach suggests either a catastrophic technological accident or a deliberate act of provocation." Marcus Chen knew they were walking a razor's edge. One misinterpreted signal, one moment of perceived aggression, could trigger an extinction-level response. But humans had an ace up their sleeve. Dr. Yuki Nakamura, a quantum communication specialist, had been analyzing the initial signal. Her breakthrough was both elegant and dangerous. Using a complex algorithm that combined linguistic pattern recognition with quantum entanglement principles, she developed a communication method that could simultaneously translate and subtly reshape communication patterns. "It's not just translation," she explained to Marcus. "It's adaptive communication. We're not just speaking their language. We're learning to think in their communication paradigms in real time." When the first official communication channel opened, Marcus Chen was ready. Instead of traditional diplomatic language, he used a hybrid communication method that was part mathematical proof, part cultural narrative, part quantum signal. The Concordance representatives were stunned. The communication didn't just convey information. It demonstrated a level of adaptive intelligence that shouldn't have been possible for a primitive species. Admiral Cathax's serpentine form flickered with confusion. The translation algorithms struggled, producing fragments of meaning that defied traditional interpretation. Humanity, not a destination, but a process of continuous adaptation. Communication, not transmission, but transformation. Potential, undefined, boundless, unpredictable. In the Concordance chambers, something unprecedented happened. The representatives began to argue, not about humanity's threat, but about humanity's potential. High Arbiter Vornak's crystalline form pulsed with an emotion closest to fascination. "They are not what we expected," he said quietly. "They are something else entirely." The diplomatic powder keg was primed, and humanity had just lit the fuse of a conversation that would reshape galactic civilization. The challenges arrived like a digital storm, each more complex and seemingly impossible than the last. The Zarkon Concordance had designed these trials to be unwinnable, a gauntlet of tests that would expose humanity's supposed technological and cultural limitations. Dr. Rachel Okoye stood in the central command hub of Earth's Adaptive Response Center, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Around her, a team of the most brilliant minds humanity could assemble worked with a furious, coordinated intensity that defied conventional understanding. The first challenge was a resource allocation problem that had stumped galactic civilizations for centuries. A simulated star system with critically limited resources, complex environmental constraints, and multiple competing species needs. Previous attempts by advanced civilizations had always ended in catastrophic failure or brutal conflict. "They're watching us," whispered Dr. Jake Rodriguez, a systems theorist with a background in ecological engineering. "This isn't just a test. It's a psychological evaluation." Rachel nodded. The human team approached the challenge differently. Instead of viewing it as a zero-sum game, they began developing a collaborative ecosystem model. Their solution wasn't about maximizing individual gain, but creating a symbiotic network where each species' unique capabilities complemented the others. The alien observers were baffled. The human approach violated every established principle of resource management in galactic civilization. The second challenge was even more intricate, a massive technological puzzle that required simultaneous problem-solving across multiple dimensions of physics, biology, and information theory. Previous civilizations had spent generations attempting to solve similar challenges. Kira Yoshida, a quantum computing specialist with neural augmentations that allowed her to process information at unprecedented speeds, began to see the pattern. "It's not about solving the puzzle," she said, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "It's about reimagining what a solution looks like." The human team started breaking down the challenge, not as a linear problem, but as a living, adaptive system. They developed an approach that was part algorithm, part organic learning, part creative intuition. The third challenge was perhaps the most insidious, a complex diplomatic scenario designed to expose cultural weaknesses. It simulated a multi-species conflict with intricate historical tensions, seemingly irreconcilable differences, and potential for total annihilation. Marcus Chen, now working closely with the simulation team, recognized the true nature of the test. "They're not just testing our problem-solving," he explained. "They're testing our capacity for empathy, for understanding, for finding solutions beyond conventional thinking." The human team's approach was revolutionary. Instead of seeking a traditional diplomatic resolution, they began developing a communication framework that allowed for multiple perspectives to coexist. They created a dynamic model of conflict resolution that acknowledged historical pain, while simultaneously creating pathways for mutual understanding. Each challenge revealed something profound about humanity. It wasn't about technological superiority or raw computational power. It was about adaptability, creativity, and an almost impossible capacity to see potential where others saw only limitations. In the observation chambers of the Zarkon Concordance, something unprecedented began to happen. Silence replaced the initial certainty of humanity's inevitable failure. High Arbiter Vornak's crystalline form pulsed with an emotion that was somewhere between fear and fascination. "They are solving the unsolvable," he whispered, "and they don't even realize how impossible that should be." The trials were far from over, but humanity had already changed the game in ways no one could have predicted. The research facility hung in the delicate orbit of Europa, humanity's most advanced scientific installation. Dr. Aisha Nakamura stood before a holographic display that seemed to breathe with living information, her hands trembling slightly with the weight of what they were about to attempt. "Adaptive quantum resonance matrix," she whispered, the words carrying the potential to rewrite the fundamental understanding of consciousness and technology. The project had begun as a desperate response to the challenges posed by the Zarkon Concordance. What started as a theoretical exploration had become humanity's most audacious technological gamble. Traditional computing, quantum computing, biological neural networks. All of these were mere precursors to what Aisha and her team were about to unleash. Dr. Marcus Wong, the project's lead systems architect, adjusted a microscopic quantum interface. "We're not just creating a new technology," he said, his voice a mixture of excitement and profound understanding. "We're creating a living system of information." The breakthrough had come from an unexpected convergence of disciplines. Quantum physicists worked alongside neurobiologists, information theorists collaborated with cultural anthropologists, and artificial intelligence specialists partnered with consciousness researchers. It was a quintessentially human approach, breaking down disciplinary barriers, seeing connections where others saw only divisions. The adaptive quantum resonance matrix was more than a computer. It was a system that could learn, adapt, and evolve in real time. Unlike previous AI attempts, this wasn't about creating an artificial intelligence, but about developing a collaborative intelligence that could interface with human consciousness. As the first test sequence began, something extraordinary happened. The quantum matrix didn't just process information, it began to resonate with the researchers' own thought patterns. Holographic displays filled with complex geometric patterns that shifted and changed, reflecting not just data, but emotional and cognitive states. "It's reading us," Dr. Elena Rodriguez muttered, her background in xenoarchaeology giving her a unique perspective. "Not just our data, our potential." Suddenly, the facility's quantum communication arrays began to pulse with an unexpected signal. It wasn't an external transmission. It was being generated from within the matrix itself. Complex mathematical proofs, cultural insights, potential technological solutions to problems humanity hadn't even identified, yet began to materialize. Dr. Aisha Nakamura realized they had created something unprecedented. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was the first glimpse of a new form of intelligence, one that was simultaneously technological and deeply, profoundly human. The quantum matrix seemed to be doing something impossible. It was not just processing information, but generating new potential, showing pathways of development, communication, and understanding that transcended traditional computational limits. In the observation rooms, veteran scientists who had spent decades pushing the boundaries of human knowledge watched in stunned silence. This was more than a technological leap. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. "We're not controlling it," Marcus Wong said softly. "We're collaborating with it." The Zarkon Concordance's most advanced monitoring systems began to pick up the quantum signals. Whatever humanity had created was something entirely new, a form of intelligence that didn't just compute, but imagined. A system that didn't just solve problems, but revealed potential. As the first full test concluded, Dr. Aisha Nakamura understood they had changed everything. Humanity had just taken its first step into a larger, more complex understanding of consciousness itself. The quantum leap had begun. The battle for the Orion Nexus would be remembered as the moment everything changed. Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the bridge of the HMS Prometheus, her fingers dancing across quantum adaptive interface panels. Around her, the ship was less a traditional vessel and more a living, breathing organism of technology and human intention. The Zarkon Concordance fleet surrounded them, massive battleships that had decimated civilizations for millennia. Each alien vessel was a marvel of technological superiority, bristling with weapons that could shatter planets, equipped with defensive systems that had made them seemingly invincible. But humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement. The Prometheus was part of a new breed of vessels developed from the quantum resonance matrix breakthrough. It wasn't just a ship, it was a dynamic, adaptive combat system that learned and evolved in real time. Traditional military strategies meant nothing here. "Incoming quantum disruption wave," Lieutenant Kai Chen called out. His neural interface was seamlessly connected to the ship's systems, thoughts translating into immediate tactical responses. Where any other civilization would have attempted to block or counter the attack, the Prometheus did something entirely unexpected. It didn't resist the quantum wave. It absorbed it, analyzed it, and then used the energy to reconfigure its own defensive matrix. Admiral Cathax of the Ceridian Confluence watched in horrified fascination. The human ships weren't fighting like any military force he had ever encountered. They moved like a living ecosystem, each vessel communicating and adapting with near instantaneous precision. Captain Martinez understood something fundamental that the alien civilizations had forgotten. Warfare wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about adaptation, creativity, and understanding. The Prometheus began to deploy a series of technological gambits that defied conventional military logic. Holographic decoys that weren't just visual tricks, but quantum-entangled information networks. Communication disruption fields that didn't just block signals, but reinterpreted and redirected them. "We're not destroying," Martines murmured to her executive officer. we're solving. Each alien attack was met not with direct counterforce, but with a complex, multilayered response that transformed the very nature of the conflict. The human fleet didn't just defend, they reorganized the fundamental parameters of the engagement. Quantum adaptive algorithms developed on the fly turned enemy weapon systems into collaborative problem-solving networks. Defensive shields became information exchange platforms. What should have been a battlefield became a dynamic, evolving conversation. The Zarkon Concordance fleet began to fragment. Their rigid, hierarchical command structures couldn't comprehend the fluid, adaptive approach of the human vessels. Entire squadrons found their most sophisticated weapons turned into complex mathematical proofs. Their attack vectors transformed into potential collaborative solutions. Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez, the tactical AI specialist, was orchestrating something beyond traditional combat. "It's not about winning," she explained to the bridge crew. "It's about revealing potential." As the battle reached its crescendo, something unprecedented happened. The human fleet wasn't just defeating the alien armada, they were fundamentally changing how the conflict was understood. Admiral Cathax's communication channels erupted with confusion. The humans weren't conquering, they were transforming. Captain Sarah Martinez watched the quantum displays, seeing not just a battlefield, but a complex ecosystem of potential and possibility. The Orion Nexus would be remembered not as a site of destruction, but as the moment humanity revealed an entirely new approach to conflict. Warfare would never be the same again. The Galactic Cultural Archive had never experienced anything like this. Curator Jurin, a being whose entire existence was dedicated to understanding the cultural essence of civilizations, stood before a collection of human artifacts that defied every known classification system. It began with music. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, a cultural anthropologist and musician, had been part of the diplomatic mission tasked with sharing human culture. What she brought was more than a simple collection of sounds or artistic expressions. It was a living, breathing narrative of human experience. The first performance was a collaborative piece that blended technologies from around the world. An orchestra of traditional instruments mixed with quantum adaptive sound generators, creating a musical experience that was simultaneously ancient and futuristic. Each note carried layers of meaning: historical struggle, hope, pain, resilience. Joren watched as the holographic displays captured not just the sound, but the emotional resonance of the music. Human art wasn't just about creation, it was about communication, about bridging impossible distances. A virtual reality installation followed. Created by a collective of artists, programmers, and philosophers, it wasn't a mere technological display. It was an immersive experience that allowed alien observers to literally live through human memories, emotions, and collective experiences. One moment, they experienced the terror of a child during a natural disaster. The next, the overwhelming joy of scientific discovery. Then the quiet hope of a community rebuilding after conflict. Each experience was raw, unfiltered, profoundly complex. "They don't just create art," Joren muttered to a colleague. "They create empathy machines." The most profound revelation came from an unexpected source. A group of human prisoners had created an intricate tapestry that told the story of human resilience. Made from repurposed technological components and traditional weaving techniques, it was a physical manifestation of humanity's ability to find beauty and meaning in the most challenging circumstances. Dr. Aisha Nakamura, who had been part of the cultural exchange team, explained the deeper significance. "We don't see barriers," she said. "We see potential connections." A performance piece arrived next, a dance that was part martial art, part mathematical proof, part emotional expression. Dancers moved in patterns that seemed to solve complex quantum equations while simultaneously telling a story of human migration, struggle, and hope. The alien observers were stunned. Human culture wasn't something that could be categorized or contained. It was a living, breathing system of communication that transcended traditional understanding. Virtual reality experiences showed moments of human contradiction, scientific precision alongside raw emotional vulnerability. A surgeon performing a delicate operation would be followed by the same person playing a musical instrument, creating poetry, fighting for social justice. Jiren realized something profound. Technology wasn't humanity's most impressive achievement. It was their capacity for empathy, for reimagining possibility, for finding connection in the most unexpected places. The final presentation was simple yet revolutionary. A compilation of human laughter from different cultures, different moments, different contexts. It wasn't just a sound. It was a universal language of hope, of resilience, of shared human experience. They are not a civilization, Jiren said softly. They are a process of continuous becoming. The Galactic Cultural Archive would never be the same. Humanity had just redefined what it meant to be a sentient civilization. The diplomatic chamber of the Galactic Concordance trembled with an energy that defied traditional political discourse. What had begun as a unified front against humanity was now crumbling in real time. Ambassador Marcus Chen stood at the center of a holographic projection, his presence both physical and quantum projected. Around him, representatives from 17 different stellar civilizations watched with a mix of fear, fascination, and growing respect. The Voxanar Collective, once the most ardent opponents of human expansion, were the first to break ranks. Their lead diplomat, a crystalline being named Lyrax, projected a holographic representation that seemed to shimmer with internal conflict. "We have misunderstood everything," Lyrax announced, their crystalline form pulsing with complex emotional wavelengths. "Humanity is not a threat to be contained. They are a catalyst we cannot comprehend." The turning point had come unexpectedly. During the recent conflict, human diplomatic teams had done something unprecedented. Instead of seeking total victory, they had begun developing collaborative solutions that benefited multiple civilizations simultaneously. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead xenodiplomacy specialist, had engineered a breakthrough that would reshape galactic politics. The Adaptive Resource Sharing Protocol wasn't just a diplomatic treaty, it was a living system of mutual development. Planets that had been locked in centuries-long conflicts found themselves presented with solutions that didn't just end hostilities but created pathways for mutual growth. Technologies were shared, not as weapons, but as collaborative tools for solving systemic challenges. The Kizera nomadic clusters, a civilization of space-faring nomads, were particularly impacted. Humans had developed quantum communication networks that allowed their scattered communities to connect in ways they had never imagined possible. "They don't see borders," whispered Jiren, the cultural curator who had been so profoundly moved by human artistic expressions. "They see potential connections." Ambassador Chen understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't about human dominance. It was about demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to civilization-level problem-solving. One by one, stellar civilizations began to break from the original anti-human coalition. The Ceridian confluence, which had been the most militaristic in opposing human expansion, found their own technological limitations exposed by human innovative approaches. Admiral Kathax, who had once led the charge against humanity, now sat in the diplomatic chambers with a profound sense of recalibration. The human approach wasn't about conquest, it was about transformation. A revolutionary communication framework emerged. The Quantum Diplomatic Network, developed by a collaborative team of human and alien scientists, allowed for unprecedented levels of understanding. It wasn't just a translation tool, it was a system that could capture the nuanced emotional and cultural contexts of communication. Dr. Aisha Nakamura, who had been instrumental in developing the quantum resonance matrix, explained the breakthrough. "We're not just sharing information," she said. "We're creating a living system of mutual understanding." The political landscape of the galaxy was fundamentally changing. Civilizations that had been enemies for millennia found themselves exploring collaborative potentials. Resource-sharing protocols, joint scientific initiatives, and cultural exchange programs began to replace traditional competitive models. As the diplomatic session concluded, Ambassador Marcus Chen realized they had achieved something far more profound than any military victory. They had demonstrated that conflict could be transformed into opportunity, that differences could be bridges rather than barriers. The galaxy would never be the same again. 50 years after first contact, humanity stood at the threshold of a transformation that would redefine civilization itself. The Galactic Collaborative Hub hung in orbit around a specially constructed planetoid, a marvel of collective engineering that defied every previous concept of interstellar cooperation. Dr. Aisha Nakamura, now in her 70s, watched the final assembly with tears in her eyes. What had begun as a potentially destructive first contact had become something miraculous. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had reimagined it. The hub was more than a diplomatic center. It was a living ecosystem of scientific, cultural, and technological exchange. Quantum communication networks pulse with collaborative research, sharing knowledge across hundreds of civilizations in real time. Species that had been enemies for millennia now work together on challenges that would have been unimaginable decades ago. Ambassador Marcus Chen, now leading the Interstellar Collaborative Initiative, reflected on the journey. Their approach had never been about superiority, but about potential. Humanity's greatest strength had been its ability to see connections where others saw only differences. The quantum resonance matrix had evolved into something far beyond its original conception. It was now a galaxy-wide network of mutual understanding, a system that could translate not just languages, but entire cultural contexts. Scientific breakthroughs that would have taken centuries now emerged in months, as civilizations learned to truly communicate. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, leading a team of synorchaeologists, had discovered something profound. The challenges posed by the Zarkon Concordance had been more than a test. They were an ancient method of identifying civilizations with transformative potential. We weren't being judged, she explained during a multidimensional conference. We were being invited to participate in a larger conversation. The most remarkable transformation had occurred in how civilizations approached fundamental challenges: climate restoration, resource management, conflict resolution. These were now collaborative processes rather than competitive struggles. A group of young researchers from multiple species demonstrated a joint research project that captured the essence of this new paradigm. They were developing adaptive ecosystem restoration technologies that could heal planetary systems damaged by centuries of conflict. Their team included beings whose ancestral species had once been mortal enemies. High Arbiter Vornak, now a close ally of human diplomatic initiatives, reflected on the transformation. Humanity did not conquer, he said. They revealed a different way of being. The military had been transformed as well. What was once a system of destruction was now a collaborative defensive network. Technological innovations were shared openly, turning potential weapons into tools for mutual protection and scientific advancement. Cultural exchanges had become the primary method of diplomatic interaction. Art, music, philosophical discussions, these were now the primary languages of interstellar communication. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for millennia had been replaced by fluid, adaptive networks of mutual understanding. On the hub's central observation deck, a memorial stood, not to military victories, but to the concept of potential. It was a constantly shifting quantum sculpture that represented the ongoing process of collaborative discovery. Dr. Aisha Nakamura approached the memorial, her hand reaching out to touch its living surface. She understood now what they had always been creating, not a civilization, but a process of continuous becoming. Humanity had not changed the galaxy through conquest or technology. They had changed it by revealing a fundamental truth: that potential is limitless when we learn to truly communicate, to truly understand. The journey was just beginning.